on, okay. Great. Welcome, everyone. Today's session, we're going to be focusing on CV building. Your CV is the first impression any employer or university admission is going to have about you. So it's a very important piece of information that represents yourself. And before we get into that, I'd like to introduce everyone to Jagged and what we do. Jagged is a startup that started in NYUAD about a year ago and was founded by 4 amazing NYUAD students from all over the world with one purpose, which is to create a community of guidance and mentorship that is peer-to-peer. And we hope that through our application, we ease the transition for high school students from high school to university, because we as people who just experienced this transition not too long ago know how scary that can be and how uncertain it can feel. And we hope that our app can maybe ease that transition, even if it's a little bit. So that's a little bit about Jagged. Make sure you follow us on our social media, which I'm sure how most of you have heard about our event. And if you haven't already, we will share our socials in the chat later on as well. And that's about Jagged. For today's session, we'll be doing a more interactive workshop than our usual panels where we discuss in groups. And we have Donna Downey from the NYUAD Career Development Center here to give us a quick overview on CVs, what it means, what it is, why is it so important. And then we have 2 amazing Zayed University students that are going to be giving us a little interactive workshop on how to edit your CV to make sure it's the best representation of yourself. Go ahead, Donna.
Thank you, Martha. So before Mira and Aisha show us how to create a CV that is really impressive, I just wanted to give you an overview. So maybe some context on who I am. I am a person that's looked at tens of thousands CVs. All I have really is I've had a little bit more time than maybe you have. But I oversee the Career Development Center at NYU Abu Dhabi. And so I wanted to share with you as an intro to the wisdom that Mira and Aisha will be sharing. I'd like to share with you 3 high-level observations about all the CVs I've seen of young students and university students and high school students. And then I want to share with you, after those 3 observations, the CVs that are my favorites to read and the ones that are my least favorites to read, just some high-level insights. And so to start out, so a CV is like, I would say CV is an evolving document. So right now, I think it will in many ways feel like a list. It's like a storage of all the meaningful things that you've done that contribute to the person that you're becoming. But I think over time, it becomes more of a curated story. So one thing I'll often tell students is that you should always have a version of your CV that is has everything, like all the small things you've done, the courses that you've been a part of, the trainings. It also has all the internships or volunteering that you've done. But then you also will have, you will rarely send that to anyone. That will be mostly for you to remember, because it grows hard to remember as you continue to build your journey. And you'll develop audience-specific CVs that are highly based on what you're applying for, because that you get to decide what they should care about and what they should focus on. Which leads me to my next point. So your CV is an evolving document, but it's also a CV is a type of storytelling. So I want to encourage you to think about it as one way that you'll tell your story. I think that as Maitha said, it's a first impression, but it's a really important one. It tells people what to remember about you. It tells people how to frame your experiences. It gives people a feeling. They have a vibe when they look at it that is memorable. So, and it either makes you memorable or it can render you forgettable, depending on how you construct the document. So I think in that sense, it carries a lot of storytelling weight. And I think you really are the author of your CV, and you're the author of your story. So over the next 10 years, people will not always request a document of you, but they will always request your story. So your CV is like your home base for whether or not you're introducing yourself in a video, whether you're creating an online professional profile. It's essentially the framing of how you talk about yourself in your story. And then I would say the third thing I want to emphasize is your CV has an audience. So it's really important that when you're creating this, and as Aisha and Mira will lead you through that process, that you always think about who's reading it. Because so whether it's a company that's reading it, whether it's an organization that's considering having you as a leader, or a scholarship committee or a school, they have a lot to read, most likely. And most likely they won't be spending a lot of time on your CV. So I would say, think in terms of about 15 seconds that they might spend looking at it. And you will by far spend the most time with this document, more than anyone else. And so I think you want to think in terms of how much thinking they have to do. So one of the things that I find really interesting is what the concept of cognitive load. So when someone looks at a document, and this comes from behavioral economics and psychology research, how much thinking they have to do can either make, if they have to do a lot of thinking, it can make someone tired and they want to disengage. But if it's easy for them to understand what's important quickly, it doesn't require a lot of thinking, they will have more positive reaction to that document. And I think that is an important thing to keep in mind when it comes to your audience. So you want to make it easy to understand what's important, because they're trying to make a decision about who to weed out. They need to say yes to some people and no to other people. Mira and Aisha will talk to you a lot about how to use your space well, but how you use your white space, how you use your words, how you structure your sentences, and it all it's part of building trust with your reader and building credibility. So my favorites in terms of when I think back on all the CVs that I've read, and actually this wasn't a very difficult question. It was ironically very easy to come up with, but my favorites are the ones that feel really clean and readable. It's easy for me to see what to focus on. They don't make me guess a lot. They provide evidence that's really clear and specific. So it's not full of statements that they show me what they're good at instead of tell me. Like I don't necessarily, it's hard if they say I have communication skills, I have teamwork skills, but they don't provide any evidence, then that doesn't help me trust. And so, then they also really make it clear why it matters. So let's say they're working in a biology lab and they're running all these experiments. They tell me why that matters, why that may help the lab come to a decision, why that made their process more efficient. So I love reading those types of CVs. And the type that are my least favorite are the type that make me feel tired after 10 seconds. I just don't know what they're going for. I don't know what to focus on. I feel like I have to make a lot of guesses. They don't really have clear themes, or they use really general categories. So I feel like I have to work really hard to figure out how it's relevant. And then not all people make these mistakes all at once, to be clear, but then I think, and then they make a lot of claims that are baseless. So they say a lot of things about themselves without any evidence. So I just leave, my first impression is that it's not very credible. So they say they're a good problem solver, but they don't tell me about any problems they solved. So I just don't, it's hard to believe. So, so those would be some 3 high-level things: an evolving document, you have an audience, and this is part of your storytelling. And with that, I will hand it over to Aisha and Mira to walk you through the process in great, wise detail.
Thank you, Dana. Hello, everyone. I'm Mira, and my colleague and her name is Asha. We will be showing you a good example and a bad example of a CV. You'll be able to know the difference between them. You will be able to know what to do and what not to do. I will be starting with a bad version of a CV. So I will share my screen with you right now. I just want everyone to know that we have a CV guide for students that we share with students that come to us. And if anyone would like it, we'll try to link it in the chat, and we can send it to you via email. So make sure to link your email in the chat if you would need the guide. So I'll share my screen right now. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. I won't be able to see the chat box, so if anyone can let me know if anyone has any questions, please.
Yes, Naila, I'll guide you through the questions. And if anyone has any questions, you can either raise your hands or send it in the chat.
Yes, please. Thank you. Okay, so this is an example of a CV. This is not a real CV, so we don't need anyone to worry about that. So let's start with the general information. We don't usually, honestly, every single person that makes their CV does it in a different way. There is no perfect template or perfect way to label your sections or categories, but this is how I personally do it. So this is what I will be sharing. So you would put your name first, middle, and last name. So مثلا, for me, I would put Mira Raid Al Manai. I wouldn't share my grandfather's name because that's just too long. And then under your name, you would link your mobile number, you would link your email that you often check, not an email, a university email, especially if you're a graduate. And you would link your nationality. You don't need your PO box or your address. They just fill up space that you would need in the future for valuable information. Going on to profile summary, I usually label that as objective, and you would want to keep it limited to 25 to 30 words maximum. It's a long, cohesive sentence, just explaining very quick how you are. Employees often look at a CV for a maximum of 80 seconds, so you need to give them the best impression you can during that time. So just keep your objective really short, simple, and straight to the point. Make sure you're dedicated to the place you're applying to, and don't include I or my. So don't talk in first person. I usually advise students to start with a bonus phrase. For example, here, this girl could be writing a highly motivated American University of Sharjah graduate. I don't recommend adding the university because that would be in your education section anyway. So going to your education section, I usually put work experience before education because to most employees, they would look at that. You might have great work experience and have a bad experience in university. So your studies they're not the only part of your life that define or tell you who you are. It's just a part of something that happened during your life. So anyway, I'd be explaining the education. You would start by writing your university name, and then the city, and then the country. And then down you would link you would write your GPA, sorry. If you're graduating, you would link your GPA, your CGPA, and if you're a student, your GPA. And we recommend that if your CGPA is not above 3.0 or your GPA in general isn't, just don't add it. It's not even a mandatory thing to have on your CV. Employers don't really need it. You would put your graduation year and month, but people need to keep in mind, whoever is making their CV, that if you will write the year, the entire CV has to be year only. If you would write the month, the entire CV has to be in month. We don't advise students to add their school because you wouldn't have went to university without your school. Another thing, don't forget to write your bachelor and your concentration, not your college. And going to work experience, you would write the stuff from newest to oldest. So what you did the most recently, and then to the oldest activity or experience you had. You write the place, and then you write the event's name. You would pick a side, either left or right for the entire CV to write the date, as I said earlier. You would write the city it took place in and the country. And down, under that, I mean, you would write your position. So where you volunteer, where you a member, etc. And then you would link, write 2 to 3 points or 1 to 4 points maximum about what you did. You want to start with past tense verbs like conducted, organized, led, short, cohesive sentences that are just straight to the point. Just keep in mind the employer has many CVs other than yours. Your volunteer work under the section here would be in your experience section. So anything you were physically there for or anything you did that would be considered as experience, link it there. Just keep in mind that your CV doesn't have to be packed with experience, because your experience needs to be something that's relative to the job you're applying. So if you're applying to designing, let's say, job, you would want an experience of you volunteering in, for example, Dubai Design Week, not, for example, cleaning up the beach. So some experiences you would just keep out of the CV you're applying with. For activities, we don't recommend adding everything. Some stuff are not necessary. So just link the things you think are important. Same thing, the place, the year, and what you did very briefly. If you are a member, just type that you are a member. And if it's something in school, we just don't recommend that you add it. Going on to awards and achievements, the Dean's List would be under your education. So if you were awarded Dean's List, for example, 4 times, you would put it under your GPA saying awarded Dean's List 4 times and then write the following years. For PALS, you would link it in, so this is a part-time job inside university. That would be in your experience section. And for skills and interests, you would just make sure you write your major skills and 2 to 3 words, not sentences. Your interpersonal skills, so your personal ones, communication, leadership, make sure everything applies to you. You would have to explain your skills to your employer. And language skills. So what languages do you speak and your level? You don't need the travel section. This is completely unnecessary. So is hobbies and interests. You would need references. So your reference list, you would list it as the name and then the position of that person, and where they can contact them. Don't write their address or their office location, and make sure it's not a family or a friend or a relative that's under your references, because you need someone that knows you for who you are, career-wise and educational-wise. I'll pass the mic now to Asha, my colleague. She will be showing you a correct version of her CV and how it should look like.
Sorry, before we move to Asha, I want to ask the audience if they have any questions, and then I will also just ask a question that we got through the Q&A. But before we get to that, I think one perception I had of the CV, it's very listy, and I think I know CVs at first hand seem like they should be a list of everything that you've done. But I think one thing that was lacking for me, and linking back to what Dana was saying, was the evidence. So great, you've seen all these things, you've been to all these things, but what have you learned? What skills were utilized in that experience? So I think when you're listing your experiences, make sure to add supporting 1 or 2 lines that say, during my time in Dubai Design Week, I exhibited 8 of my work, or it shows that you were engaging with the event rather than just an attendee. I think that helps. And Mira, we have one question. A person said, can we create our CV via Canva app? Is it okay if I design it with ornaments?
Your CV needs to be not too colorful, but represents you. So let's say you're an art student, you adding, for example, an artsy touch, a very simple touch to your CV would be fine. Maybe an abstract design on the corner or something, just nothing too colorful. Just remember that it's something that should be professional. And as long as it looks professional, is not too colorful, it should be okay. Your CV does not have to look like a list, like Metha said. Make it look interesting, make the template look nice. If we had time at the end of the workshop, maybe I can show you examples of templates on Canva that students have worked on and look pretty good.
Amazing. I think just linking back to what Dana said, your CV should be easy to read and easy to follow. So as long as your ornaments are not like slashing through the middle of your CV, you should be fine. But don't shy away from making it representative of yourself. And we have another question, Mira. And I don't know, Asha, if you want to pitch in at any point and answer the questions, please feel free to do so. But the second question says, how do you write your first CV when you haven't had a lot of work experience?
So honestly, a lot of people get employed without work experience. We usually advise students to get work experience beforehand. So basic volunteering work, um, just participate in anything you can. Even your own business would be part of your work experience. And if you don't and didn't have the chance to, it's fine. You can always have time later on to do that. Your employer understands that you are a student, and you can always explain to them that you're willing, how far you're willing to go, especially for the job. And if you have time to volunteer, just do that.
I think volunteering is a great thing to include in your CV, and any extra skills that you're learning on the side, whether it's computer coding or even Excel, Microsoft, these are employable skills that you can use, or that a skill that an employer will look for.
Even extracurricular activities in university. So me being a CAL, this is in my work experience because it's like a part-time job on campus. So just try to get involved in the environment you're in. That's all you can do.
Exactly. Mira, another question. Um, there's a question about the general information section. So how much personal information should you put there? Do you put your date of birth, your place of birth, your marital status? Should you include a photo? They've seen many CVs with photos. What are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, I think when it comes to photos, especially, some people prefer it, some people don't. To me, I feel like if I saw a CV and I can put a face to the CV, it would help me connect to that person more. It's just a psychological thing. You would feel more empathy. That's about photos. About your other details, you don't need to list if you're single, married, divorced. That's not necessary. Just under your name, the only thing you need to write is your phone number, your email, and your nationality, because personal information shouldn't define who you are, and an employer doesn't need that to employ you. So why would it matter if I'm married or not? Why would it matter if I'm 50 or 40 or 30 or 20? It's all about my work experience.
Agreed. There's another question on the chat that I think follows up to your answer really well. And the question is, would it be okay to actually list your work experiences based on relevancy rather than based on the date that you did the work experience?
Um, it should be date wise for one reason, because the employer needs to know what you've been up to up till the time you apply to them. However, when you do get an interview, you can say that this work experience is more relevant than that.
Yeah,
But listing it from newest to oldest is the most used way and um, the tidier way to have your CV just made. It just
ag-
makes more sense to employers.
yeah. And I think it goes back to what Dana was saying. It's easy to follow.
Yeah.
And you said this earlier as well. Like if it's an experience that's not relevant to what you're applying for, you can just remove it,
Yeah.
and keep your CV to the audience that you're applying to.
Exactly.
We have one question that says he or she is a high school student, and they're wondering how they can make their CV in order to apply to universities.
To apply to university?
Yes.
Okay, so honestly, this is the first time I've heard of it. I didn't know universities needed CVs, but I think for university, they would mostly ask you about school, about your personal life.
Mhm.
So you could write, in that case, if you're really not a university student, you can write work experience you did in school. So let's say you were often coordinating events and
Mhm.
helping teachers or being a teacher assistant. That's still extracurricular.
Yeah.
However, when you do get into the university, you need to remove that and just write the more relevant information. You just need to constantly update your CV and make sure that you put yourself in the employer's place. What would you be looking for? Would you be looking for activities you did in school or something you did in university? It's common sense if you think about it.
And I think for high school, a lot of your activities would be the ones that you did in school, like Mira said, whether you were part of student council, for example, or a weekly volunteering event that your school hosts, or even something you did outside of school. So one thing we have in Abu Dhabi that's really common for high schoolers to volunteer in is the Terry Fox Run. Obviously, it hasn't happened the past year because of COVID, but a lot of the sports event always reach out to schools for volunteers. So feel free to include that. And then any of your hobbies on the side, even if it's something like gaming, I think that's becoming more and more acceptable as a skill that some universities are looking for, especially if you're applying to something in computer science or game design or anything along those lines. So
That's
sorry,
true.
go ahead.
No, I'm saying that's true. I'm agreeing with you.
Okay, last question before we jump to Asha and an example of a great CV. Um, let's say I'm a high school student with minimal work. Does it really matter to the reader of the CV? I think this was answered already, sorry. But just to reiterate, if you're using your CV to apply for universities, they would be more interested in the well-rounded experience that you have. So let's say within your school, like Mira said, you were a teacher assistant, or some schools have the prefect system, which is something you're selected for throughout your school, or even student council within your high school, whether you're organizing charity events. I think that's a common practice across a lot of high schools as well. Then you can include a lot of that, and that will be appealing to the university. If you're a high school student that's applying for jobs, I would let Mira to answer that question.
If you're a high school student applying for a job,
Yes, let's say the audience of your CV is um, there's this program, I'm not sure if it's still running, but it's called Yes to Work. It used to cater to high schoolers, I think, or to up to the age of 2021 from ages 15 and above. So let's say you're applying to that. What would your CV look like?
okay. So Yes to Work is a program I actually applied for. If it wasn't for personal reasons, I wouldn't have cancelled. It's something amazing. I think that every single student should be trying this, especially if they will be applying to a job later on or during university. Um, so for your CV, I don't remember if we did have to apply to Yes to Work with a CV, but it's the same thing like high school students would do. So just try to represent yourself in the most professional and best way you could. Explain what you do in your extra time. So like Meta said, especially for gamers that build their own PCs, that is not ordinary. I wouldn't know how to build a PC. So if you know how to do that, just make sure you mention it. Don't underestimate your personal skills, especially if you don't have work experience. Make sure to mention it, regardless what it is. If you're naturally talented in marketing, you do that. If you can design and you're self-taught, do that. Anything that you learned on your own during your lifetime, just make sure you mention that, especially if you don't have work experience. So whether it's you're applying for a job during high school, whether you're applying to us to work, as long as you don't have work experience, what you do in your own time is all that matters at that point. One thing you can do is if a family member has a business, if a friend has a business, just ask to lend a hand and take part for a few months. And then if they're registered, you can actually get a certificate of having a part-time job in this company or that company. So it doesn't really have to be someone you don't know. Just ask close people, your friends, can I work with you for this amount of time because I need work experience. So there's nothing really hard about it. Just make sure you think out of the box when you want to get more work experience because frankly, if you think about it, it's not really that hard to get.
That's very true. All right, I will let Asha take the floor with her CV example. Asha, if you want to share the screen.
Hi everyone. Yes, I will share my screen right now, and based on Mira's notes, I will show you now a good CV example of a university student. So at the very top, as you can see, we mentioned the full name, the first, middle, and last name, the phone number, and the email and nationality. So regarding the question that was asked about the PO box and birth date, in many other countries, yes, you should mention that. But here in the UAE, we do not use the PO box, or we don't really need to know the birthday. So only you have to make sure to mention to write down the number. And if you have more than one number, use the one that you know that you will, if you received any phone call from the company, you'll be able to answer it. The email, avoid emails with nicknames. Don't use the university email, use a professional personal email, and the nationality. So for the objective, as Mira said, it should be very straight to the point, very short and simple. Describe first your account situation, a university student, a school student, your major, and what you're looking for exactly, and where. If you're applying for a company and you already have a company in mind, you have to mention the name of the company. If you're only deciding to send your CV for multiple companies, you just write that you're seeking a full-time job. For the education part, here we write directly Bachelor of Science and the name of your major. You don't need to write I majored in or I studied the specific major. Start directly with Bachelor of Science in Accounting. If you were placed in the Dean's List, as Mira said, or your GPA is higher than 3, you might want to add it in the education part. It's totally optional, but it will give a good impression of your academic performance. So for we move to the experience part, and here we list the most latest to the oldest. As you can see, 2017, 16, and then 15. You write the name of the organization or company, the city, and the country. Then you write the type of this experience. So whether it was internship, part-time job, vice president of the club, program attendee, workshop, any kind of a workshop experience. Then it's extremely important to mention or write down the things that you did in this experience. So write if you what did you do exactly. And then we move to the skill part. And the skills part, we divided to 3 categories: the language skills, the soft skills, and the major skills. And in the language skills, you write the language, and then you write if you're a native speaker, if you're fluent, professional. In the English skill, if you have an IELTS and you scored a very high score, you might want to add it in the beside the English skill, but it's totally optional also. The soft skills, it's very important also to mention the soft skills and what you're capable of doing. And in the major skills, the skills that you gained from your major, it's professional skills. If you're a school student, you will write here a professional skills. It might decide which position that the company will give you. And at the end, we write the reference. As a student, we do not need the a reference, so we write will be available upon request. If you want to write the reference, you first need to ask the person if it's okay to share his contact details. You write his name, his position, and his office number and email. So that's it for a good CV. Also, it's very important to research the company. If you're planning to apply for a specific company, search the company, know what they need, and do a simple research about what is the position that you're aiming to get and what is the requirements of it.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Asha. We have two questions actually. One of them was, would you consider our skills only, or are major skills considered to be hard skills? So I'm assuming this question is referencing, yes.
Yes, it's hard skills and it's professional skills.
Okay.
Soft skills are more like things that it's in your personality, like time management, problem solving, communication skills, things that you're already capable of doing. Major skills are more professional.
Great. So I guess your major skills are the technical skills that you're learning in your academic degree.
Yes.
Great. And one person asked if will they be able to receive these two CVs? Asha and Mira, if you share it with us, we can share it with our participants if you don't mind.
Yes, I'll attach everything in the chat box now. I think everyone will be able to download it.
Great. And one more question, Asha. Let's say a person has publications. So one of their academic papers was published either on a website or an academic journal. Where would you recommend that they include those?
Can you repeat that, sorry?
Sure. So let's say a person has academic publications. So one of the papers they wrote for class was published either online or in an academic journal. Um, my personal opinion, I think those should be in their own section because they're pieces that are accessible to the wider public. So I would include them with a link and maybe one bullet point that says like in a nutshell, this paper explores XYZ.
In
What do
your
you think,
achievements
Asha?
section.
In the achievements section.
Yes,
Or they can have their own section if you have a lot of publications. Great.
I don't think I can link a document on the chat.
We can send it via email to the participants after the event.
Can I
So
send it to you?
yes, send it to us via email. There are a few more questions. So Asha, I'm going to be asking them to you. And again, Mira, if you have any answers, please feel free to jump in at any point. They were asking about the general information. Should that be at the beginning of the page of their CV or at the end?
general information should be in the end of the CV as more details about you.
Okay. What would you include in general information? Do you mind showing us that section again?
This general information, are they asking about, like we talked about earlier, like your
I
stats?
think it's like your academic qualification, your GPA, and things like that. So that would be at the
All
beginning.
that would be under their category. So the CV would be objective, work experience, education, skills, and references, usually. Some people have accomplishments, some people have achievements. So under each category or section, you can link whatever is compatible with that.
Great.
You wouldn't have information just on the paper anywhere.
Yeah.
Every category has something certain you need to write about. And
Decide where to place it in the CV. For example, if it's a GPA or an Dean's List information, you put it under the education. If it's only general information about you and what your skills, you put it you either place it in the soft skills or major skills. But it depends upon the type of a piece of information.
Great. So depending on the information you want to input, you would need to put it under the subcategory that you have in your CV. I hope that answers the person's question. Next question, I'm going to ask another question that has to do with articles and non-academic publications. Would would that be in the same section? I think if you run a blog, then that would be in a separate section because academic publications are usually under their own section, and the blog would be an extracurricular because it's non-academic. Academic publication, there would be an assumption that it has been through peer review. And I think if you publish something online informally, then that would be a separate section. All right, what are the 3 things you must avoid in a CV? Can I get both Mira and Asha to answer it, or maybe one of you, whatever you prefer?
I wouldn't mind. Asha, do you want to answer? Or do I answer it?
Avoid writing I or I am.
Mhm.
Avoid writing feeling. Like I love doing this or I hate doing this. Avoid writing feelings and don't write I am.
Also, please limit the CV to 2 pages only.
Yeah.
The employer does not have time to look at 4 pages worth of a CV. Trust me, even 1 page is too much sometimes. So stick to 2 pages maximum. Just write what's necessary. One thing is, I forgot to mention, don't like avoid writing abbreviations. Write the full name of anything, a country, a university, a place. Don't use abbreviations at all, and capitalize, bold, underline, whatever is necessary. Just make sure it's the same layout throughout the whole CV.
Agreed.
No,
And
no too much colors, please. No too much
yeah,
colors.
there's a person who mentioned Canva earlier, and honestly, I've been finding that online platform really useful. So they have great CV templates that are designed in a way that you don't consume all the white space, but you also, organize your information really well. One CV that I saw on there that was, I think for me, very like very attention grabbing, is it had the profile picture of the person, all the general information, so like their academic credentials, their language skills, their soft skills in like one side of the paper, and then the paper actually, or the CV, it was 1 page, but it was filled with information, and I got to know a lot about the person because of the way it was organized. So feel free, I think, to play with the template that you have. I think in 2021 there's definitely more openness to more creative CVs, but like Mira said, make sure there are not too many colors, and make sure it's easy to read and easy to follow. So for me, that person, when I saw their CV, I was like, okay, I know who they are in terms of like academic credentials. And I look to the left and I know everything any experience they've had that was relevant to the thing that they were applying to. And it was 1 page, and it was super great to like, really easy to go through. And obviously I was like, okay, interview, let's go. Because their CV was very appealing and attention grabbing. So I think feel free to play with the templates that you have as well.
And just make sure it's visually pleasing but professional. Just
Yeah.
balance.
It's like a very thin balance of like,
Very thin
not
line between too much
yeah,
and
and too
That's
little. That's very true. I would definitely not encourage anyone to use any bright colors. Not thin, sorry, pastel, very like transparent colors. But even no colors can go a long way if you just border things and organize them in a way that's easy to follow.
very
All right.
subtle colors like navy, I think would be okay.
Yes. So we have a few more questions before we wrap up our session. One question is, do you recommend including your LinkedIn profile in your CV?
Yes, you can
Why not?
account here with the personal information.
Yes. And I think LinkedIn has become widely acceptable as well as a place to find what you've done throughout your whole professional and volunteer life. And then your CV is like a snippet or something that's catered to the opportunity that you're in. So
It's like your trailer. Just like a movie has a trailer, your CV is your trailer. Just make sure
exactly.
it's really good.
I love that metaphor. Your CV is a trailer.
Only way I can explain it.
Yeah, you're either gonna grab the attention and get people in your cinema or not. So you gotta make sure it's a good one. Will the recording of the webinar be available? Yes, it will be available on our YouTube channel, and we'll be sharing some of the tips and tricks that Mira and Asha have provided us on our Instagram, and I'll share our socials in the chat just before we wrap up again as well. And if I own my own business, do I include that, and in which section would it be?
Yes, work experience. You would want to mention that.
Definitely.
Just the same drill. You would write, what's your business? When did you start and did you stop or not? If not, just dash present, and then just write what your business is about, and make sure you write you're the founder of that business. That says a lot about you.
Exactly. So I think just here where we see experience, it says Deloitte internship, you would have your business name and then founder, which is super cool. And the last question that we have, if anyone has any more questions, please feel free to submit it either in the chat or the Q&A. But the last question we have in the Q&A, it says, if I have a lot of awards and experiences and my CV becomes 4 pages, what do I do?
Um, if the entire work experience section you think is necessary for every single job you will apply to, then by all means. But what the thing is, the employer it's very rare for employers to check the entire CV. They directly go to what they're looking for, and if they can't find it, it's skipped. They don't have time because they have plenty of CVs to look after and read. So what you want to do is, like they said, Metha and Dana said previously, keep this CV with you with everything you do. Put everything, write everything down, and then another CV just dedicated to the company you're applying to. Just keep the information you think would be beneficial to them, and it would increase your chance of being employed or getting an interview at least.
If you have too many, pick the most latest and more professional.
Agree.
Yeah.
And like Dana said very early on, your CV has an audience, so make sure you cater that to the audience that you're applying to. So let's say you're applying to a startup incubator, then you would have your startup, listed there, and a lot of your experiences that have to do with entrepreneurship. Let's say you're applying to an internship with Deloitte, who would be really interested in your research skills, your analyst skills. So I would remove my startup stuff and maybe include research that I've done and experiences within the consulting field. So just cater your CV to whatever opportunity you're going for. All right, I think with that, we are ending our session. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to us on our socials. We're always responsive. And Salim, one of our core team members, has just shared our Instagram on the chat, and we will be sharing the templates to the people who attended this event via email after the event, inshallah. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending, and I hope you have a lovely Saturday. And thank you, Mira and Asha. Dana is not with us anymore, but we're thanking her virtually as well for joining us today.
Thank you for having us. It was a really nice session to be included in.
Thank you. Great.
Thank you for joining.